Welcome back to Huawei Routing and Switching Elite Training for HCIE. Today topic we are going to discuss on IPv6. Let's start our part 8.
So let's look into the first one, configuring RipNG. Now here I have a company A. Okay, so we have four things that we need to complete. All right, the requirement. So first is to configure IPv6 address using EUI64 on R3. So in R3, I need to configure EUI64 format. Okay, remember that will be generating using the 64 prefix and with the MAC address. Okay, so here we have 2001:23. That's based on our network. Then we are going to configure the RipNG on the entire network except on 2001:1, which is in this network. So we should not enable RIP. We should not enable this. Okay, but we need to use import statement. So for R3 to able to see 2001:1, we have to use the import. Alright, we should not enable this. And when we import, alright, set the metric of the route 2001:3 to 10 on R1. So we have to use a metric of 10. Okay, now please be careful over here is when we do an import, we cannot just import everything. Alright, so we have to be selectively import only for this. So in this case, we need to use a route policy. Okay, so let's us move into the ENSP and start this lab. Okay, so let's go into our lab here. Now firstly, for us to configure the IP address is pretty simple. I already showed you earlier on the lab. So I'm going to do it on router 3 to show you one time. So firstly, enable IPv6 on the router. Then you go into the serial interface. Now remember the requirement here is to enable serial 200 to use EUI64. So IPv6 enable, IPv6 address. So this will be 2001:23::64 with the EUI64. And you can see that the interface is up. And let me do a display IPv6 interface brief. And you can see that I have the interface on here 200. Okay, and you can see that 2001:23 is my prefix and this is my EUI64. So let me configure my loopback 0 with the IPv6 enable, IPv6 address as in 2001:3:3:64. Okay, so this is on the configuration on the IP address. Now next we have to enable on RIP. Okay, let me go back in router 1. Now router 1 have been pre-configured. Okay, so these are the addresses that I have, and same go for the router 2. Alright, so these are the three interfaces. Two of these is physical, one is a loopback. Okay, so this is my loopback address and the other two is the physical interface, and you can see that all of these are up. Right, for the RipNG, first we are going to configure the RipNG. Now the question requires us to enable RipNG on 0100 but not 000. And for you to advertise the gigabit 000, you need to import it into the RIP. And for us to do that, we have to configure the IPv6 prefix. So let's configure the IPv6 prefix. I call it as 10 permit. Okay, so we can do a permit that is the prefix. So the prefix we are going to do is 2001:1::64. Okay, so let me do a display IP IPv6 prefix. Okay, so there is the index 10 and this is the prefix that we want to. Now next we are going to just import according to the prefix. So in this case, we need to create a route policy. So I call it as route policy direct. So if I'm going to mesh my IP prefix of 10, okay, so there's only one prefix. Any other than that will be denied. All right, then I need to go back to ripng, and I'm going to do an import route direct using a route policy called direct. Okay, that's about it. So here I'm actually importing my interface, okay, which in this case I just specified this interface using the prefix of 2001 into the RIP. Okay, now let's go into R2 and enable on all the interfaces. All right, and on router 3, as well as the loopback. Okay, so now it's time for us to check our result. So let's do a display IPv6 routing table protocol RIP. Okay, so let's have a look on 2001:1. Alright, so 2001:1 is not here yet. Let's have a look here. Okay, seems like this is not enabled. Display ripng1. I would like to see my neighbor. Do I have it? Okay, so let's check our route. 2001:12.1.64. Let's see whether I can ping to 2001:12:2. Okay, that is running. Seems like the ripng is not enabled here. That's the reason. Okay, so let me check display ripng one neighbor and my interface. Let me have a look here. Okay, that's correct. One interface. Okay, so it seems like the ripng is not taking place over here. Yeah, you can see that the ripng one enable. Okay, alright, so the ripng one just now is my mistake. Apologize for that because I have not configured the enable. Okay, so let's go back to router 3 and double check again. Okay, so there you have it. Alright, so that is a very silly mistake. So in your exam, please don't do that. Alright, so here I have 2001, okay, colon. Alright, that is a true hop away. So if I'm going to do a ping IPv6 2001:1:1, you can see that it's pingable. And when I do a trace IPv6 2001:1:1, you can see that that's exactly true hop. Alright, now another requirement for us to configure is that we have to make sure that R1 received 2001:23. In this case, the question asks for 2001:3:3. Now, the reason over here, if let's say I go into the loopback over here, okay, and I put the ripng1 enable, Okay, so let's have a look here. I need to configure my metric. Okay, so I'm going to do a ripng. You notice that I don't have any metric out. Okay, so this one has been enabled for loopback, but the question asks for the metric out to be from the loopback. Now, due to the ENSP limitation, the loopback I can't use the metric out, so I'm going to use a metric out for 2001-23 from the R2. So I'm going to do it on the interface serial 100. Okay, so I'm going to use a command called ripng metric out of 10. So if I go into the router 1 and I do a display IPv6 routing table protocol rip, okay, there you have it. Okay, so you can see that that is on my 23. Okay, 23, there is a metric out of 10. Over here I have configured router 2 to advertise 2001-23 of a metric 10 instead of using the loopback. So you can see that that also will affect my 2001:2 as well, because that's inside the loopback, and 2001:3 that will be one hop away. That's become a hop count of 11. But no worries, I just want to show you how you can configure the metric out using the ripng. Right, so it's time for us to look into the OSPF version 3. So again, we have a company A, and these are the requirements. First, we have to configure R2 to assign IP address to R3. If you still remember, we are going to use a stateless address auto configuration, okay, or SLAC. Okay, and the second one requirement is to add S100, which is here, and the loopback of R1, which is 1111, and S100, which is here, to area 1. And area 1 we need to configure as a not so stubby area. Now the serial 200 and the loopback, which is this one, of the R2 and R3, so here is in area 0, whereas and here we have the area 1. Okay, so we are going to configure two requirements. First, we have to do an address, which is using stateless. Okay, and second is to configure an SSA in area 1 and area 0 as a normal backbone area. Okay, so let's go into our lab now. Alright, so here we have the OSPF ENSP. I already enabled the addresses on R1, R2, except for R3, because the requirement here is to configure R2 so that it will give a slack to R3. So just to confirm that my IP address is being configured on R1, okay, and I'm going to do it on R2. Right, so these are the three IP address, and on R3. As you can see that the R3 is unassigned. Okay, so the first requirement is to configure R2 to give out a stateless address auto configuration. So let me go into the serial 200 and let me show you the IP address 2001:23::2. And for us to configure the stateless, what you need to do is just to do undo IPv6, neighbor discovery, router advertisement, hot. Okay. Alright, so this is command for us to send out the array, and on router 3 we have to configure to use auto configuration. So let's go into 00200 IPv6 address auto global. Okay, so you can see that it's up. Let's do a display IPv6 interface brief. Okay, so I have the FE80, so we just wait for a while for the IP address to be available. Okay, so we just wait for a bit while. Now you can see that the Slack is actually giving you the IP address, which is 2001.23::163 and the rest. So if I'm going to do a ping on IPv6 2001.2023::2, and you can see that I have the ping is run. Now the next question over here, the requirement is to configure R1 interface S100 and the loopback in the OSPF, but in the area 1. So this is what we're going to do. First we go into the OSPF v3, okay, process ID 1. Now remember always to configure the router ID. Okay, so for example my router ID is 1111, okay, and this one is in area 1, and in the area 1 we have NSSA. Okay, so that is on the R1. So I need to go into the interface, which in this case is my interface serial 100 OSPF v3 process ID 1, and I'm going to use an area of 1. Okay, and this also applies to my interface loop at 0, and that I have the OSPF 1 area 1. Okay, so this is done. Let me check my display OSPF v3 interface. Let me show you the brief version. Okay, so there's no brief version here. Alright, so here I have the serial 100, okay, that is under the area 1, and I have a loopback that's also under area 1. That's done. Let me go into the router 2. In router 2 I still have to configure OSPF v3 process ID 1, that's the default, router ID, there is a must. Then I have an area 1. Area 1 is an SSA. Okay, then I also have an area 0. So area 0 is the one that is actually connecting to here, so there is nothing for me to configure, but the area 0 is where I have a serial 2 and the loopback. But for my interface serial 100, okay, this one I'm going to configure on the OSPF v3 process ID 1 area 1, but in my serial 200 my OSPF v3 process 1, this area is area 0. Same thing go for my loopback 0, so this one will be in area 0. So let me show you the display interface. Display OSPF v3 interface. Okay, so let's have a look here. Alright, so on my serial 1, okay, as you can see from here, that will be on area 1. Okay, and on my serial 2, that will be area 0, and my loopback 0 is in area 0. So if I do a display current config OSPF v3, you can see that area 1 is an NSSA. So when I do a display OSPF v3 followed by my peer, you can see that I have a full peer over here. And if I do a display OSPF v3 route, okay, so you can see that I do have my 2001::1 that's belong to router 1. Okay, so this network is okay and formed. So I need to go to router 3 now. Okay, and this is pure area 0. So I just need to do a router ID. Okay, that's important. And I just go into the serial 200. Okay, OSPF v3, process ID 1, this is area 0. Okay, so what I need to do is to configure my loopback as well, and I'm going to do a display OSPF v3 followed by my peer. Okay, that also full. So now I'm going to check my routing. Alright, so do I see number 1? There you go. Alright, so you can see that this is inter area. Okay, and if I'm going to do a ping on IPv6 2001:1:1, and you can see that is pingable. So here I have a basic configuration on OSPF running on the NSSA. So if I go to router 1 and do a display IPv6 routing table, protocol OSPF, there you have it. Alright, the OSPF that I have, okay, so that is a 2.2 and there's a 3.3. Okay, alright, so that is on the OSPF configuration.
Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel.